Hello and welcome to Walk the Pod, your daily walking podcast, where I tempt you away from your desk for 10 minutes to walk in nature and to pay attention to what's directly in front of you. The series on stillness so far this week has been not only fascinating but also an extremely useful reminder for me, a person who spends a lot of time sitting at desks spinning my wheels. I'm reminded that the demons hate fresh air, that it's better to get out into nature, and today I've got some excellent stuff on how to be unmoving in a hectic world. But first, a voice note from Mighty Marcel in the Netherlands. Welcome to Walk the Pod.
Hey Rachel, it's Marcel from the Netherlands. Stillness, that's the topic. And stillness, peace and quiet is a bit hard to come by at the moment where I live, because we're getting a new fire alarm installation, which so far has meant 10 weeks of near daily drilling and hammering noises. So yeah, whenever it's quiet, I'm enjoying it very much. And right now, it's 10 p.m. and I'm outside. It's slightly misty, and as I said on the Discord, I enjoy the quality of sound, or actually the lack of sound, when it's misty. The silence you get then is amazing. I can't hear the highway, which is actually not that far from here. So I'm really enjoying that, and yeah, stillness.
Thank you, Marcel. Really hope that you managed to get to your office away from the noise during the day. 10 weeks of drilling is too much drilling. Oh my goodness, it really does seem a bit unnecessary, to be honest. And it's really interesting to hear that the mist muffles the sound from the highway, between the highway and your flat. When I'm walking through mist, I sort of imagine it doesn't do very much. But actually, of course, if there's mist all the way between the highway and your home, it is going to muffle the sound of the cars and lorries and everything. So thank you very much indeed for that, Marcel. Really appreciate your thoughts on stillness. And if you'd like to send your own thoughts on stillness, we've got another week of episodes next week, so you can absolutely do that. Go to walkthepod.com. That will take you to a few different ways to get in touch, including SpeakPipe, where you can leave 90 seconds of your beautiful voice, as Marcel did. I'm moving away from the Zuckerberg, Musk-based social media platforms, but setting up elsewhere. So if you have other social media platforms that you can recommend, please let me know. Not all of them work for me. Sort of actually find them quite scattering, so I tend to sort of keep away from them in the first place, really, but there might be the odd one that's worth looking into. And I like to have places for the Walk the Pod community to chat. So that's really what I'm trying to achieve. Looking into Signal and Blue Sky and Pixel something, I've forgotten what it's called. Oh my goodness, I've just walked past some catkins hanging off a branch here, and they've deposited a load of yellow pollen all over my gloves. I wonder what those are. Very interesting. Anyway, the jumping off point of Ryan Holiday's brilliant book, Stillness is the Key, is where we are getting our thoughts on stillness from this series. And today I want to bring you some interesting, actually quite surprising thoughts from George Orwell, also Marcus Aurelius, my favourite Stoic philosopher, which actually go against something I consider to be absolutely fundamental to the way that I exist. There is a German phrase about how it's really good to be the hammer as opposed to the anvil, I think is what that means. It's really good to be the hammer because it's a proactive approach to life where you make things happen, you take action. And I definitely subscribe to this 100%. Look for it in people I hire. I do it myself. I looked for it in people who are leaders within my organisation. But George Orwell said, it's always the hammer... sorry, let me phrase this properly. It's always the anvil that breaks the hammer in the end, though, isn't it? And, and Marcus Aurelius suggested that we should be the rock, the promontory of rock, standing still while the waves crash around it. Both of which are very interesting, but completely counterpoint the proactivity, or do they? I don't know whether perhaps it's perhaps you can be doing your proactive work whilst resisting the waves crashing all about you. There is, of course, also Rudyard Kipling's poem, If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs. So maybe it's not about not... I mean, it's not going to be about not doing things, I don't think, but it's about... I think it's about kind of deciding what you want to do in your one wild and precious life, as Mary Oliver put it, and not being put off by all the people saying, oh, you can't possibly do that, because the problem with that idea is, the reason that won't work is you have to do it anyway, in the knowledge that the anvil always breaks the hammer in the end. But I mean, yeah, we are all going to be broken by the anvil eventually. It's not necessarily a reason not to do it, though. So, your thoughts on that, welcome. All basically comes back round to stillness, something we're exploring this series and trying to learn more about, and trying to work out ways of being still in an increasingly hectic world. I've come to the woods, that's my way of being still. I was watching a documentary about Leonardo da Vinci last night on BBC Radio Television 4, one of the channels we have in this on this island, BBC Radio Television 4. And Leonardo da Vinci believed that nature was God, and that nature has nothing superfluous, creates things that are completely beautiful and unique and impossible to replicate, and putting ourselves in the middle of it as often as possible probably can't be a bad thing. And I realise I'm squelching through enormous amounts of mud as I'm telling you this, so it's actually quite challenging underfoot, but but the point stands, pod pals, the point stands. Oh dear. Do apologise for the quality of my voice. I do sound like I can't breathe properly, and that's because I can't breathe properly, but I do have a treatment for that at the end of the month. So you can expect Series 54 to be a bit less laboured, and thank you for bearing with. What can I see directly in front of me? An enormous amount of squelchy wet mud, I think is the answer to that question. And the beautiful green catkins which deposited their bright yellow nectar all over my gloves earlier. The woods are very still, very beautiful, full of birdsong. Muddy underfoot. And an absolute tonic to get out into. Oh dear. Hugely looking forward to being able to breathe properly again, dear friends. It was partly the cold, but it's also partly the subglottic stenosis. That's the chronic respiratory condition that I live with. Although the doctor I saw recently did say, after this treatment you have at the end of the month, Rach, you may not need another one. You may be fine for ages. So, fingers crossed. I was reading in the RSPB magazine earlier about how to spot various different corvids in flight. What is the difference between a raven and a jackdaw and a carrion crow and a rook as they swoop overhead? And looking at the differences between fan and wedge-shaped tails. Talking to Sam about flight feathers. Very interesting stuff. They all look the same to me from underneath. If I'm looking up at a flying corvid, I can't tell you which one it is, but maybe now I'll be able to say, there's a diamond-shaped tail. That must be a raven. And there is a corvid swooping overhead. I'm going to say it's a jackdaw. Now, don't be fooled by the fact that something just made a noise over there, because that wasn't the same bird. Be people writing in going, it wasn't a jackdaw, it was a crow. Well, I can't. What you've got to understand, pod pals, is that what I'm looking at and what you can hear are not necessarily the same bird. But, having said that, they could easily be the same species of bird, and I might just be misidentifying the one I can see. I think that's quite enough for one day. It has been an absolute delight to stretch my legs with you this lunchtime. Thank you so much for walking with me this week. Brings me enormous energy and joy to be making a podcast series for you. So thank you for listening. Take care of your beautiful mind, as always. And I will be back with episode 6 on Monday.